Hello and welcome to another World of Warplanes video with me, Certain Death. Continuing with my recent theme of reviewing some of the Tier 4 fighters, today we're looking at the second Japanese one, the Nakajima Ki-43-I Hayabusa. Apologies to anybody who's a historical enthusiast if I got that wrong, but I think it's pronounced about right. And as ever, I'll be showing you some gameplay featuring this plane and talking about its strengths, its weaknesses, what it does well, what it doesn't do so well, and maybe making some comparisons to some of the other Tier 4s. So far in this series, we've looked at quite a few. We've looked at its counterpart, the A6M1. We've looked at the Bristol 146, and we've also looked at the I-17. So we've looked at a few fighters so far, and let's see how this second Japanese one stacks up. So we're jumping into some gameplay here, and we're going to talk about the plane and how it performs on its travels through this game. First thing worth noting then, when you get the plane, when it's first unlocked, you will find that it has a 110 hit point, and that is low. That's a bit on the low side. Now, that's partly because the Japanese fighters are all about high maneuverability. They're very light airframes, and they are all about nipping in and out of combat quickly, but that trade-off does mean that they are lightly armoured and don't have many hit points. So they're a little bit of a one-trick pony, and they take a little bit of getting used to. Unlike something like the American ones or the Bristol 146, you can't really afford to get in much of a scrape because you will get destroyed quite easily. Having said that, if you can play these well, they can perform well, and hopefully we'll see some of that in this gameplay, which is a decent game, not stunningly excellent. So, yeah, it's got 110 hit points out of the box. When it's upgraded, that'll become 120, which is still a bit lackluster, but it's manageable. It's okay. It's not great, but you can get away with it. So far things are sounding a bit negative. What is good about this plane? Well, its maneuverability. When you get the stock plane, it has a maneuverability rating of 96, which is amazingly high, and unbelievably, when you improve the engine and the airframe, that becomes 98. This is nigh on a perfect plane for getting in amongst dogfights and doing turning and burning, as long as you can avoid anybody getting on your own tail or putting shots on you. So yeah, it's got great maneuverability. Linked to that is, of course, its turn time. Stock turn time, 8 seconds. Phenomenally good. There are very few planes in the game at all, let alone at this level, that will outturn you. And that improves to 7.9 seconds when the plane is upgraded slightly. So it is very, very good at just getting into scrapes and hopefully as well getting out of them. If you get somebody on your tail, you can normally outturn pretty much anybody. Its suggested altitude to fight as around the 700 meters, which is just about where I'm playing now. And in my experience, which is fairly limited, I've only played a few games in this, that seems to work pretty well. Speed wise, it's not the quickest. When it's going along in a straight line, not boosting, it'll do around about 280-ish kilometers an hour, which is fairly standard. It's fairly, middle of the road for this tier. And yeah, when you are boosting, you can push it up to about 400-ish, which is it's okay. But as normal, it's got a 6-second boost, which again is pretty standard. The guns. You'll notice that I'm playing this there with two 20mm cannons, which is quite nice. However, the sad news is the plane does not start with those guns. It starts with two 7.7mm machine guns, and that is pretty awful, to be honest. In fact, in my experience, the only plane that I've struggled more with when this was stock than this plane is one of the other ones I'll be reviewing this week, which is the German Heinkel HE-112, which, like this, starts with some pretty awful guns but can be upgraded to better ones. Thankfully, you don't need a lot of experience to move those guns from 7.7s to a pair of 12.7s, which then become quite manageable. And there'd probably be there'd probably be a strong argument there for whether you keep the 12.7s or the 20s. The 12.7s have quite a nice damage output and don't overheat very fast. The 20s, these pair of cannons, will do more damage, but of course will overheat quicker. So one of the skills I've been developing in my own gameplay is this art of feathering the cannons, playing them for a couple of seconds on, a couple of seconds off to allow that them to cool down. I'm just going down here to heal, by the way. I don't know why I'm going back over this airbase. We've got the one that's got the great big wrench on the ground, the one that heals planes, and I'm not that far from the gameplay, so I can afford to go back out and heal. So yeah, the guns are, frankly speaking, pretty awful when they're stock, but with a little bit of effort, you can upgrade those to some guns that will serve you pretty well. The 12.7s do a quite nice job, and the 20s, the pair of 20s, yeah, pretty effective. They can certainly, if you get on the tail of somebody, you can tear them apart in a few bursts quite easily. So, How does it stack up compared to other fighters Tier 4 then? Well, that's a bit of a tough call. There's so many options at Tier 4 that it's difficult to really compare. As you know, if you've probably figured out already by now, I'm kind of working my way down all of the lines, and rather than grinding one line, I'm working my way down all of the lines to try and make these comparisons. I've already said in previous videos that I thoroughly enjoyed the British Bristol 146, that I think the I-17, the Russian Tier 4, is a pretty nice aircraft. I absolutely loved the American P-36, although that plays a slightly different style. It's not so much a turn and burner. It's got slower maneuverability but more hit points and some quite devastating cannons. This one, I think, in my opinion, falls somewhere in between. It's quite a nice plane. I personally don't think it's quite as good as some others, but it's not a bad plane at all. I've just passed 3,000 combat points, by the way, now, and what I'm doing here is it's a bit of a gamble in a lightly armoured plane, but basically we've got this central area capped, and therefore we're pretty much winning the game quite comfortably, and I'm hanging around the area where the enemy are going to respawn and then come back in to try and reclaim this central area and just get on the tail of guys like this. You get behind a ground aircraft, you can do a lot of damage to them. Now, and that's what I'm doing, just loitering on the edge of this sort of blue circle. I don't really want to go too far from it, A, because I don't want to get into a lot of trouble, B, because you actually get more experience points, combat points for yourself if you manage to take down enemy kills in the circle. I've actually drifted out of it here because I had a bit of a rush of blood and wanted to get rid of that plane in front of me. 4,000 combat points in the Grade 4 fighter just been achieved. And at the minute I'm still doing okay. So yeah, the Ki-43-I is not a bad plane at all. I was asked by somebody a couple of weeks ago on Reddit if I would review this plane after I had done the Ki-10 and the Ki-27, and I said I would get around to it within a couple of weeks, so here it is. I still think it's a pretty good plane. It's just not very good early on. As I said earlier in the video, for me, and this is very much just an opinion, I have found that the only plane worse than this out of the box was the Heinkel HE-112. But similarly, like this, once you can upgrade it, it can become quite a nice plane. So I'm enjoying playing this now, and having no real problems playing it. It works with my style of play, which is largely turn and burn. That's what I spend a lot of my time doing, and it's quite nice. Quite like this plane. So, I mean, as games go, it's an okay game. It's not stunningly good. We've just passed the 5,000 combat points mark, and got the Grade 3 fighter on 5,500 now, near enough. And you see examples there of how well this plane can turn. And actually, this game's already kind of winding towards an end. We're about 60-70% capped thereabout, and not too far from the end. The squall line's coming down as well in 28 seconds, and everything's going pretty rosy for me. We've got another attack aircraft coming in, and what I'm doing is trying to approach him from an angle where he can't really shoot me, to put some shots onto him, then drop in behind him. Now, a lot of these aircraft do have rear guns. I'm taking a bit of a gamble by sitting behind some of these guys, but what I tend to do is what I've just done there, put a few shots on, and then turn out of the way and make another pass. Now, unfortunately for me, I've got somebody on my tail now. I've got two people on my tail, and I'm taking a lot of damage very quick, and the score line's just come down, and this is not the time to go out of the game, so I'm trying to just shrug one of them off while out-turning the other one. But when you've got two people, unfortunately, that's me out of there. Now, it's a bit of a shame because I was having a very good game there, and that's the game. I'm going to cut to the end now because the score line had come down. We went on to win it. But even in a very average game, what do? The Hat Trick Award, which is one of each of 3 different types of aircraft killed. Effective fire for getting 5,000 combat points. Grade 3 award. Finished 3rd in the team overall, and got the the McCampbell's medal as well for 10 kills in a single sortie. That's an average game in this plane, and it's still still pulled in 46,000 credits and got a decent bit of experience, and that was just an okay game. Hats off to those people who did very, very well in the Spitfire there and the Beaufighter. Would I recommend playing it? Yeah, it's a nice plane to play. You just have to grind through that pretty awful stock twin 7.7 guns, because they're pretty naff. But if you get beyond them, the 12.7s work well and the 20s work well, and I'm told that the Japanese planes continue to get quite good as you go further down the line. As ever, hope you've enjoyed the video. Please do share and subscribe. Thanks very much. Goodbye.